This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to The Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relation podcast since 2015. One of the things I like about podcasting is I think every good conversation should be a podcast. So I had somebody come into Pod Populi, podcast for the people, here in our lovely studios in Boca Raton, and we started to have a conversation, and that conversation was so interesting that I felt it was very selfish not to share it with you guys. So she didn't know she was going to get dragged in to do a podcast today, but we were meeting about something else, and I had a lot of questions, and she has a lot of answers that are going to lead to more questions from me, which hopefully will lead to more answers from you. She's an author. She's a professor. She teaches a lot of things, but she really knows the science and the biology of love, which I don't really get into too much around here, but I think it's a real thing, and I'm always surprised at how little we pay attention to our chemicals and our hormones and our reactions and the way our body is like, what's going on with my heart and what's going on with my brain and how do we match things up? Dawn Maslar, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, and you have a married name now.
Biggie.
Biggie. That's a good, that's good. You took on you hyphenated it?
I hyphenated it online so you can find me. But
Was it a discussion?
on my license, I'm a Biggie.
You're a Biggie.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you. All right, Dawn Biggie. So we were talking before we started to hit the record button here. It's fortunate I have recording equipment at all times with me. And I said, very simply, how do you feel about the state of love, dating, relationships right now? Are you hopeful? And you said you were always hopeful.
Always hopeful.
However, what are we getting wrong that you're like, we're never improving on this because we don't understand it?
Well, as I was trying to kind of put forward, I'm concerned. I want to get out the information and then people can make their decision for themselves. Some of the information that people don't understand is that love has a biological effect on you. And sex has a biological effect. Attraction is different than love. And falling in love is different than long-term love. So if you understand the stages, then you can make the decisions that you want for your life. So one of the things that we were talking about was sex, which always comes into a relationship thing. When is the appropriate time to have sex?
Right.
So for a woman, when she has sex early on in a relationship, she produces a lot of oxytocin. The oxytocin will cause her to bond. She can actually fall in love. Falling in love is a distinct physiological state. We see changes in the brain, such as deactivation of certain parts of the brain.
Wait, so love is a medical condition, for lack of a better term?
It's a physiological state. So it's not a medical condition,
Right,
because
but-
it does not require medicine.
Right, but if you did a scan to read the physiological, you can say, oh, that person's in love?
Yes. Yes. We can do fMRIs
Yeah.
and look at that, and also look at their biological levels. For example, your serotonin level drops. It drops to the level of someone with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. That's why you're so obsessed when you're in the first 2 years of relationship.
Huh. So let's back up. So love, I think it's something, it's subjective. I think you have to define it for yourself, but you think that love, sorry if your microphone's moving a little bit there. Your love is, what does the body do when it knows it's in love? Or what is the body reaction that says, oh, this being, this thing is now in a state of love?
Okay, so we call it falling in love, right?
Right.
It's actually physiologically falling in love. So we see a buildup of enzymes in neurotransmitters and hormones, and then we see a fall in those. For men, particularly, testosterone plummets when he falls in love. Usually, when he commits, and then he usually falls in love.
Right.
And then we see a deactivation of. I know I'm falling the microphone. Exactly. We see a deactivation of certain parts of the brain, such as the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, which is the part that judges. We see a deactivation in some of the parietal lobes. We also see a deactivation of the amygdala, which usually causes anxiety. And that's one of the reasons why people are like, I'm so happy and I'm in love. but it only lasts for about 2 years.
So he falls in love. His testosterone is ramped up when he sees her and he pursues her and I want her. And then he falls in love and that falls. Well, that seems like a bad result.
His vasopressin actually skyrockets.
And what
too.
is that?
So that is he's when sexually desirous, but it drops when he's satiated. So that's one of the reasons why you don't really want to have a sexual relationship early on, because once he's satiated, it's like done. He's not really interested in pursuing any longer.
So that's the chase.
Uh-huh.
Okay. He's satiated, but that's a short-term satiation. Satiation, is that the word?
So
because then it should ramp up again.
So here's what happens with testosterone. You had mentioned testosterone. So
Right.
it builds up, and you have a part of your brain called the pursuit spot. That testosterone actually expands that pursuit spot. And one of the reasons why there's a joke about men don't like to stop for directions, because it's associated with direction. It's a part of the hippocampus.
Right.
Women have more memory, men have more direction. So the theory is he knows where all the women are, or where he kept them all, so he can get back to them.
Right.
So when your testosterone drops, his pursuit spot shrinks. He's less likely to want to pursue, and his testosterone dropping also decreases his desire to pursue. So we see in men, particularly that have a relationship and produce children, female children, his testosterone will drop to the level of someone of castration.
Well, oh no. Well, that's not. It doesn't bode well for the human race and romance.
No, it bodes great, because it'll be high in the morning when he goes for work.
Right.
Around 5 o'clock, he's done. He's going home. He's taking care of the family.
Right.
Nature's beautiful. She's beautifully orchestrated this.
So the mother hen, the wife, whatever you want to call it, she's fine with that cycle. That's the cycle we should be in as male and female, or does that trickle down to relationships are out of sync because of the way we seem to be most in sync when we are most in love early on, but that's a false positive. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think what's happening with that is the deactivation of the brain decreases the anxiety level. It allows two people to get close for a while, long enough to really get to know each other. And then the brain comes back. We return to homeostasis.
Right.
Homeostasis meaning the normal, where we should be. We can't walk around with parts of our brain deactivated for the rest of our lives.
No. But you bring up the 2-year thing. So you think most relationships or most marriages or whatever you want to say they are, it's 2 years is sort of the point where most of them fall apart?
Well, Helen Fisher, the relationship expert, found in her research that about 2 years is the highest divorce rate.
Right.
Amount.
And that matches with what you're saying about the
Yes.
chemicals.
Yes.
So if you can make it past 2 years, that's a good sign.
Well, now love changes. So in the beginning of it, we see these activations in the parietal lobe. It actually kind of looks like cocaine, taking cocaine on the brain.
Right. That's what people are like. I'm looking for chemistry. It's
Yeah,
really
exactly.
It's a cocaine high.
I'm looking for a fix. They're like,
Right.
So, but we see when you go into after the 2 years and you get past the conflict realm. There's like a conflict part where your brain comes back. If you start getting to a loving relationship and you actually have to think your way into it, the activity changes. It goes up to the prefrontal cortex. It's next to brotherly love, commitment, like love for your fellow man, morals, ethics. It's all lives there. But we also see an activation in our opioid center, and that is that more relaxed love. It's nurturing. It's more helpful. Men that are in a loving relationship, a long-term loving relationship, live a lot longer than their single counterparts because of that health benefit.
Yeah, I believe that, but you can't just delay sex by saying that. That seems like game playing with your natural inclination desires. If you're just like, well, I'm just going to hold off sex until whatever this arbitrary point is, isn't it all going to just start then anyway? No matter how long you wait, isn't it eventually going to screw up all our wiring if you wait 5 days or 5 years?
Yes.
Oh, well, so what do we do?
Well, you want it to happen at the same time.
That's a tough bullseye to hit. Or that's trying to hit two bullseyes.
Right. So as a female, here's the problem. If I'm a female and I have sex with you right away and you don't fall in love, but I do. Now I'm standing outside rattling around your garbage cans trying to figure out why you're not calling me because I'm obsessed.
Is that a stereotype of the way women act? Isn't the man, I think the man, when he has sex with her, he hopes to like her. He wants to fall in love with her, I think.
No, not necessarily. I mean, if he's still just in pursuit, if he meets the sexual satiation part. So,
Yeah.
All right. I got a story.
There we go. Story time.
Story time. So there's something called the Coolidge effect. Do you have time for this?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know President Calvin Coolidge?
Yes.
Okay. So the story goes.
He doesn't sound that sexy, but what do I know? Well, we'll see. Story.
Mrs. Coolidge thought he was. She thought he was hot. So,
He
but
put the cool in Coolidge. Yeah.
But Coolidge wasn't that interested in Mrs. Coolidge anymore.
Okay.
So they go on to this trip, and they're on a chicken farm, and they start walking around, and Mrs. Coolidge is up ahead, and she looks over, and this rooster's being amorous with this hen. And she goes to the attendant, she goes, "Is he like that all the time?" And the attendant says, "Yes, man, all day, every day." She goes, "Go tell President Coolidge that." So he runs back. He goes, "President Coolidge, your wife wants me to point out this rooster." And he looks over. He goes, "All right, I see what he's doing. Is he like that all the time?" "Yes, sir, all day, every day." He goes, "All right, one more question, son. Is it the same old hen every day?" He said, "No, sir, it's a new hen every day." He goes, "Now run back and tell Mrs. Coolidge that."
Well, somebody was in here earlier before you came in here. A lot going on here at Pod Populi. And he said that he'd been happily married for 20 years. And then he said that he had been married for 21 years. And I said, well, which is it? Were you married for 20 years or 21 years? Because I happen to remember in his mind, because I said, 20 years is good. And he goes, it's actually a little story. Him and his wife at the 20-year part took a 9-month break. They just let's take a timeout. They went their separate ways for a while. Nobody asked any questions. They came back. He's like, "We've never been more in love." And I go, "Is that because you missed each other more?" And he goes, "It's because we appreciated what we had more." And now I'm not saying that's a very tricky thing to take a time out and do that, but it was, I think, whatever their malaise that got into their relationship or their habits or their routines, they needed a way to kickstart that. And it kickstarted not only, parts of their body that may have been put away. They kickstarted their love for each other and what they had and why they got together from the first place and why they did those 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's rare that married couples circle back and get married again after a while, but that's because a lot of life things, writing checks to each other upon divorce and kids and custody. But if people got to the why did we get together in the first place and what was the good things about this and have some distance and some clarity, I think there's some upside to that.
Absolutely.
But back to the relationship thing. So early on in a relationship.
Well, let me finish this story. Yeah. So that's called the Coolidge effect.
Yeah.
So I can take a box of rats and I can throw a male rat into the box and he'll have his way with all the females. And he will lay in the corner exhausted. They can lick and try to entice him and he won't budge until I throw a new female in, and then he's up and at him, and that's the dopamine effect. So that's that. So we call it the Coolidge effect, but
right.
that is his dopamine burst up. So part of when a man falls in love is his dopamine increases, vasopressin, his testosterone increases, and then it's going to drop when he falls in love. It doesn't mean he's not happy anymore, but he's not in that crazy pursuit phase any longer.
So you think men, creatures, I guess, are biologically, physiologically, whatever it is, wired to like the shiny new thing?
Okay, so I know a lot of people don't like to believe that we're animals.
I believe it. Yeah.
But we are actually part of the animal community.
Yes, we are.
So we abide by all of the rules of the animal community. So that's a natural component of it. It's nature likes to spread her seed, but she also likes survival. So I think falling in love helps with the survival. So if we look at what's happening for those 2 years, if you produce a child after about 2 years, that child, if they've survived, they're pretty much good to go. So
Right.
that may be nature's